My name is Alexandra, and I have a question that arose from your recent event at the Tibet House. You and Robert Thurman were discussing Rama and Sita, and he starts saying a sentiment that I've heard many times before, which is, I always had a problem with this idea that Rama never forgives Sita for what he perceives as her infidelity. And you turn to him and you go, but they're one. And you said it with this force, and I had heard this before, but it's the first time it actually resonated, and that sort of changed my perspective on the story. And I wanted to see if you could elaborate on this idea of Rama and Sita being one being, and how that impacts our interpretation of living this modern myth.
Okay, first of all, there's a thing in India, the word lila. God's lila, they call it. And lila means play, or like playing, or drama, like that. And they have the storyline goes like this, is that there was tremendous evil in the world, terrible suffering and pain, and God took form to alleviate that suffering. And the way it was alleviated was a whole storyline was created with different characters playing their parts, and through the working through of that storyline, the negativity in the world was removed. So Rama. Now this is. I don't think about these things that much, because it doesn't really. I don't find that it helps me stop walking into walls that much. But since I lived a lot in India, I've heard a lot about it. So the idea is that Ram and Sita are not two different beings. They are both manifestations of the divine. They're actually one soul. They're not two souls, if you think of it that way. But they've taken a form in order to create the situation where the ego, Ravana, steals the individual soul, has power over the individual soul. And the supreme being, the supreme soul, the Paramatman, has to find it after it's been kidnapped. And it's through the intervention of Hanuman that they are reconnected. Hanuman is the breath of Ram, is the connection between the two, reconnects them when one is lost under the influence of selfishness and self-centered thing. So that's the underlying storyline. People get very upset because, first of all, Ram never stopped loving Sita. I don't know if you know this, but the rest of the story goes on to how to describe that he lived the rest of his life as a brahmachari, as a celibate. When he sat on the throne, he had another throne erected where a statue of Sita, a golden statue, was created, and they ruled together. And he lived alone for 12,000 years, not just a couple of weeks or a couple of years. He had, in those days, they say the lifespan was like, 30,000 years. So all of this is obviously on another level, right? I mean, you can't understand it with the Western intellectual mind. It doesn't function like that. The whole thing was created to alleviate the world get rid of this negativity that was had arisen in the world at that time. And another thing, Ram sends a message to Sita through Hanuman when he was going to look for her. And he said, the reality of the cord that binds us together is known to my heart alone. Because Ram represents the supreme being, and Sita represents the individual soul that's lost in the world at that moment. It's not because she's a woman. That's just the way it worked out.
Well, it's easy to take it in the Western.
It's easy to take it that way because Westerners have their issues, but they don't have those issues in India that way 20,000 years ago, whenever this happened. So you can't project that kind of thing on it because they're not two separate beings. And in India they sing Sri Ram Jai Ram Jai, but they also sing Sita Ram, Sita Ram. One thing. It's not two things. Sita Ram. So it's all about love and finding the way to reunite our individual being, which is cut off from that love, that ultimate love. Finding a way to reconnect that. And that's what those stories help us do. They're not political statements, you know. You know, we're born in this age and we think that we know everything. We're so far advanced. You know, we're so far advanced that we're going to destroy the planet. You know, that's how advanced we are. So we think our version of everything is as modern, intellectual human beings in this age. We think we know everything. You know, it may not be that way. So, and more about that? What do you think?
I mean, I could listen to you talk about this again and again, but I'm wondering, is there a specific teaching that you think helps to find more of a connection between the two? And how do you reconcile as a Westerner this idea of this gigantic overarching love or overarching being and connecting it to yourself? And how do you find that connection with all of the distractions that are in the modern age, and with this idea that maybe we do know everything, and that mentality that you just...
The part of us that knows everything isn't that part that was talking. You know, you know, we are everything. Everything's within us, but we're so outwardly directed that we've lost the ability to see, you know, from within, or see into ourselves and see what's in there. All we're doing is constantly interpreting and rearranging the sense information that we get, right? But the part of us that's aware of all the sense information, we're not aware of that, right? We don't know how to see the seeing. So the seeing is the consciousness, is the inner consciousness, Sat, Chit, Ananda, true consciousness and bliss, by the way. That's what it feels like when we're actually in it. So how to turn our vision, you know, around and come back in? Some kind of practice. Some kind of practice. You can't think yourself into it. The thinking is a prison, and you can't think yourself out of a prison made of thought. Every thought is a prison wall. There's another bar. We have to learn to train ourselves to let the thoughts go. And that takes great inner strength and paying attention. And it comes little by little as we, that's when the chanting, that's all about the chanting. That's my main practice. I do a lot of other things, but that's my main practice. And that's the one that is very powerful for me, you know, because I sit down and my one job at that time is to sing and pay attention. And if I notice I'm not paying attention, I just come back. And the time that it takes me to come back gets less and less as the years go by. I don't go so far away. But it's something that comes over time. Some practice has to be done. Some anchor has to be put down into the ocean. Otherwise, the ship just gets blown around. You don't put down the anchor. It just keeps getting blown around. So some way of connecting to what's inside of you. And the longing to do that is what will lead you to it. The longing you have yourself to find that place. That's what will get you there. You don't need anything from anybody. And yet you can receive anything you want to from anyone. And whatever you receive from other people, you'll take and use for yourself. Because we have to do it ourselves. And we can. And we wouldn't be interested in any of this stuff if a part of us didn't already know exactly what it is, what we're doing. So that's the part of us we have to kind of remember, you know, because we are distracted. We've been trained to be distracted our whole lives. So to untrain ourselves, it takes a little while. The fact that we're asking these questions in the first place is a big thing. It's not just a little thing, it's a huge thing. Think of all the people in the world. Very few people are asking the questions. And even the people who might want to ask the questions aren't in a karmic situation where they can. So we have a lot going for us, you know, really. So we're all very blessed to be here in America and have food on the table and a place to sleep. Most of us do, you know. So, but still we're not happy, right? That's the longing that will save us and lead us in the right direction inside. I think.
I hope.
I hope, for sure.
Great.
Okay.
That's all I have for that question.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much.
Take your cup too. Don't forget
I will.
to take it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.